right, gentlemen, welcome. Another napkin test. I know Nick has joined me on a previous napkin test of the Arkansas deal, which I'm very excited about. But I've got Nick and Joey from Trinity Peak Partners. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Doing
good.
well.
How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for joining me. So, full disclosure, I'm thinking about loaning you guys some money for your next flip project, and I'd like to grow this relationship to lend you a bunch of money. But we got to do a napkin test on the deal to start off with. So, Joey, give me a quick nitty gritty on your background. Nick, quick nitty gritty on your background, and then let's talk about this deal.
Absolutely. No, thanks for having us, Chris. I'll go quick. I spent almost 2 decades of my career in the pharmaceutical and medical device industry and held multiple types of positions in that industry. And my wife, Meredith, and I, she's a part of Trinity Peak Partners. We did a ton of real estate on the side as kind of a side hustle for a long time. And finally left that corporate world behind. And we are full-time real estate investors along with Nick as a incredible business partner. And so we enjoy fix and flips. We've done a ton. We've got a lot under our belt, and multifamily, as you know, as an investor with one of our projects, Chris, is kind of our other space. So fix and flip and multifamily investing is kind of where we sit and kind of the 2 lanes that we drive in.
Perfect. And Nick and I talked about your Arkansas deal on the last napkin test. Today we're talking about some flips. Nick, give me the quick nitty gritty, my friend.
Yeah, so back in 2015, I started at Mylan Pharmaceuticals. In 2016, Joey hired me right out of college and moved me out to Denver, where I took over the Colorado Springs territory. So that's where the friendship and I guess didn't know it at the time, but the business partnership began in 2016. So we go back all the way. Then Joey, Meredith, his wife, they moved out to Denver at that time, around the exact same time. And then just through getting to know each other, building that friendship, we discovered a passion for real estate. And Joey was my boss when we got laid off last August. And up until that point, we had been starting to invest in real estate, in single family and multifamily. And then we finally took the jump from the forced layoff full-time into real estate. I'm the chief operating officer, co-founder of Trinity Peak Partners, and then I raise a lot of the capital as well at Ironton Capital for a lot of their different private equity funds. So a lot of things I'm working on, but passionate about it, and I love it.
Yeah, and that's where you and I met, Nick. So I was VP of Investor Relations at Ironton, and you were one of the IR reps. And I tell you, I saw you get better at this craft essentially every day. To watch your ascension and how much mojo you've put into this direction in your career is pretty awesome. It's really cool to watch. And then the fact that you found that amazing deal in Arkansas, and I had the privilege of investing. Disclaimer for anyone watching: this is not investing advice. This is not tax. This is not legal. These are 3 guys talking about a deal. There's a very good chance I'm going to be funding this fix and flip for Joey and Nick. But it's taken, I've known Nick for over a year now. It's taken a while to develop this relationship and watch it ascend. I also know Joey and Meredith are from Lubbock, Texas. Homeland, right? Shout out to West Texas. Love it.
Yeah, something that we learned right from that breakfast we had, Chris. I always say it's such a small world when you find out, when someone's from that area. So
yeah, that's awesome. All right, gentlemen, let's dig into it. So you got a deal. It's in Ohio. It's a fix and flip. Give me the nitty gritty. What are we in it for? Take it from here.
Yep. Joey, do you want to run with it? Or do you want me to?
So Chris, this is a single family home that we're looking at doing a fix and flip on that we've kind of filled you in a little bit, but it's out in Girard, Ohio, just a little bit northwest of Youngstown, Ohio. So it's part of that network of those smaller cities out in Eastern Ohio. But Girard is pretty highly ranked. It's kind of a Class B city, Class B area, but it's highly ranked in that geography, so to speak. But the house has great bones. The exterior is already in really, really good shape. We're going to be doing some light exterior renovations for that, but the interior is where the magic's going to happen. So there's a lot of interior cosmetic rehab that needs to be done. And we're able to purchase this property at $42,000. And it's a 970 square foot home. And the cool thing about this particular property is the basement is unfinished, and it is also 970 square feet. So we plan on increasing the square footage literally double. So we're bringing this from a 970 square foot home to a 1,940 square foot home. So we're putting in around $35,000 to $40,000 in renovation. So kind of brings that all in up to about 85,000. So we're in that range.
Yep.
And based on the CMA and the comps, of course, around the area, the after repair value is right in that $130,000 range. So we've got a really good deal, that we're able to purchase this at such a great a price. So that's kind of the deal in a nutshell. Nick, did I miss anything?
No, you're spot on. And, I went to school in Kent State. So from Pittsburgh to Kent State, I made that drive quite often. And so we've got a couple fix and flips in Newcastle right now, one we're about to list this week. We have another one just north in Warren, Ohio, that's on the market too. So in passing through a lot of these areas, they're good tertiary markets, very affordable, and they're older markets just because of the history of those cities, and coming from Pittsburgh all the way up to even Akron, Ohio, and up to Cleveland, Ohio. There's a lot of suburban area there that makes sense to invest in, so you can buy these cheap properties in pretty solid areas and solid tertiary markets and make a solid 20 to 30% on your money in a fairly short period of time.
Yeah, and real quick to add on to that, what we love about this kind of Western Pennsylvania, Eastern Ohio area, Chris, is it's kind of that area that has a lot of older homes, but the culture of kind of these cities like Newcastle, like Nick mentioned, and a lot of these smaller tertiary markets is that these people don't leave. A lot of these individuals and their families, they like to stay around, they stick around. And the issue that these areas have is that there's not a lot of new homes. And so we like to go in and provide new homes and opportunities for some of these families that are going to live there their whole life to have a newer home. And that's kind of why we chose this market as well. Okay,
great. Yeah, I did a quick Google search of who lives in this area, and there's a lot of retirees. There's a lot of people, you're right, that they're not moving when they retire. They don't move to Arizona, right?
Yeah.
They stay put.
Yeah, they're staying.
All right. So something that I have a little PTSD over is getting into these really cheap deals in old Amarillo, Texas. So I bought a whole bunch of $40,000, $60,000, $80,000 houses. I mean, I think I bought a duplex for maybe $60,000 in Amarillo, Texas, and I got my hat handed to me to a degree for a few reasons. One, these were rougher areas. These are rougher areas I was used to, and two, I call it the pile of cash. Right, the pile of cash problem. So you get into a $50,000 deal, and these were buy and holds, by the way. These are not flips. So, but it's worth talking it through here. So I'd get into a $50,000 door, and the cash on cash was great. It was 18%, 20%. And I thought, hey, I've found my spot, right? Just north of Lubbock. We got old Amarillo, Texas. It's like the gateway to New Mexico, the gateway to Colorado. A lot of traffic goes through there. It's definitely a hub. And we did a sewer line, for example, where that sewer line doesn't care that your deal costs $50,000. Sewer line is $10,000. So whether you're putting a $10,000 sewer line in your $1 million home or your $50,000 home. Now let's just real easy numbers. Let's say you're making 10% cash on cash on a $50,000 deal that you're in for, let's say you're in it for $10, $15, $20,000, and boom, you're hit with a $10,000 cost. Suddenly that cash on cash is eaten up for years. Now I understand that this isn't a buy and hold play, but give me some peace of mind Talk to me about being on this kind of lower end. I mean, I looked at this neighborhood through Google Views. It looked like a pretty decent neighborhood. I didn't see any graffiti. I didn't see any broken windows. I didn't see any, I guess you're not going to see bums on the street from the Google view usually, but give me some peace of mind about this low price point.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Joey.
All right. You can add on and whatever I missed, Nick, but, I literally just drove through Amarillo, Texas, Chris, Meredith and I did, over the holidays. And Amarillo is definitely a linear market as well, right? It's a slow growth. There's growth, obviously, but it's a slow growth. But with a city that size, you definitely have some rougher areas, right? And so I think every city is going to have a rough area. But I think what the difference is with towns like Girard, Ohio, where this property that we're talking about, it's more historic. And so instead of thinking of it as a rough area, we feel like these towns and cities have a more historic feel as opposed to a rough feel. So when you have rougher areas in Amarillo, Texas, that's where you have a similar price point as what we're getting into kind of in these PA and Ohio markets. But it's a little bit different in these markets out in Ohio and PA because that same price point is more of a historic type neighborhood, and that's where that price point is comes into play. And it's I feel like it's apples and oranges when you compare a rough area in Amarillo for the same price point to Girard, Ohio, or Newcastle or Warren or those types of towns, because it's more of a historic feel, same price point though. Nick?
Yeah, that's a great point. These are markets that are a solid maybe 45 minutes to an hour away from the major cities. If you look at where Akron, Ohio is, Cleveland, Ohio, Pittsburgh, Ohio, a lot of our flip properties are somewhere centrally located, equally distant from those cities. Now, would I want to go buy a $40,000 house in downtown Pittsburgh? Probably not, because you're dealing with the crime. Maybe there's some historic elements to the city, but there is crime that's continuing to increase. It's the same with Cleveland, Ohio. It's the same with Akron, Ohio. So you can buy similar, cheaper properties, but you're dealing with the higher crime areas. And that you typically can escape that when you're gravitating about 45 minutes to an hour outside the city, just a little bit more, quite frankly, out into the countryside, of Pennsylvania and Ohio. So hopefully that's enough peace of mind for you.
Yeah. And when I, again, going through all the pictures, I see plenty of pride of ownership, with all the neighbors and it radiating out. And these are larger lots than I suspected they'd be at this price point, which was very surprising. And I understand that, when you get beat up on a deal, you can bring some irrationality to your next deal because you still got a few black eyes, right? Another thing that I've experienced when I've gone out of state, now I've invested in Oklahoma, Colorado, Texas, Nevada. I think that's it. Now Arkansas.
I was about to say it. If you didn't say it, I was about to, Chris.
Arkansas. When I was dealing with property managers out there, and these were deals that I was syndicating, guaranteeing the debt, managing, sponsor, you name it, I was doing it. The contractors I was dealing with and some of the managers I was dealing with, to a degree, felt like they were flipping me upside down and shaking me for every penny I had in my pockets. How do you guys hedge against that? How do you build those relationships? Who are your crews out there? Are you sending your Denver crews? Joey, I know you've got a really extensive remodeling and flipping history. Let me throw that question to you. How do you know you're not going to be taken by these subs?
Well, it's a great question. And, I think one of the things I haven't mentioned, at least here, was that I feel like one of my strengths has been team building. And so I held those roles in the pharma and medical device industries and built pretty solid, successful teams in those industries. And I kind of transferred that skill set over to real estate investing. And we spent a lot of time interviewing general contractors, construction crews, property managers, those types of things. We didn't just kind of go out and say, okay, who's ask a broker who's the best one and go with them. No, we wanted to see if it was a good fit. We wanted to see if, what their other projects were. We wanted to see what other properties they're managing. We wanted to see if they've ever worked together, the GC and the property manager. We wanted to do a lot of those things for all of our markets, including this one, right? So we spent some time out in Western PA and Eastern Ohio to do these interviews and to build these teams. And so it was a significant amount of time that we dedicated to making sure we had good teams in place before we ever even, offered on any house or property, so to speak. And so I think that initial due diligence up front and building teams and building solid teams was super important for us to be successful in these markets and in the Arkansas market as well. So Nick, you're welcome to add on to that as well.
Yeah, one of the things that we did here that we sort of replicated in Arkansas is partnering with a property manager that works very well with a construction crew. There's some accountability there between the two because they've worked together on a lot of different projects. So we also, like Joey was saying, team building. We wanted to kind of see who do they work with and how can we match them together on our project. And that's exactly what we did in the PA and Ohio markets. The agents that are selling our fix and flips, they know the construction crew. They've worked with those different crews. They know, they know the property manager, the realtor that helps sell a lot of our properties. They own their own property management company where they manage over 2,000 units in those markets. So, and they obviously have very deep-rooted connections to construction teams that they work with on a routine basis. So working with those, trying to really piece together those different factors and elements became very important. Versus, like Joey said, I don't want to go get the best broker and then the best construction team, and then they don't even know each other. And I want to make sure that the good and the good match up together, and they've got a working relationship because that's going to make them want to be more successful together, and that's going to in turn make us more successful with our capital. And so that was what we really wanted to hone in on as well as we went out of state.
Got it. So how many flips have you done in this Pennsylvania, Ohio corridor here?
So this will be our fourth one in that area.
Okay.
Yep.
And so the same crew and the same agents have worked all the same, acquisitions and exits?
Yep, absolutely. We have a different agent in the States, though. We do have an Ohio agent that helps us on both ends, and we also have a Pennsylvania agent. So that's kind of one of the key elements as well, since you kind of cross that state line.
Right. Nick, you're from Pennsylvania, right?
Pittsburgh.
You're from Pittsburgh. Okay. So, and then you said you drove this when you were going to college. So you've set your eyes on this zone for many years. Yeah. I know you weren't looking at the real estate when you were driving, prior. You're fairly new to real estate, but like I've told everybody, and I say it on these podcasts, and I say anybody who asks, I mean, you just get better at this stuff every single time I talk to you.
Thank you.
It's really cool to watch. And I don't, I'm not blowing smoke here. I wouldn't say that if it wasn't true. I'm just curious your process to go from selling medical devices to this. And I mean, are you a constant reader? You're on Bigger Pockets every day. I mean, you got a gig at Ironton Capital with the famous Lon Welch. I mean,
yeah.
How are you doing? Give me a little snippet to your ascension and how you're learning all this. And yeah.
I mean, I've told you, I started my career investing in real estate back in 2019, house hacking, when I bought my first property, which is set to close on Wednesday next week. So I'm about to go full cycle on my first rental property, and that's kind of bittersweet. But, I really started to recognize the power of real estate. I bought the first house. I brought two renters in a market like Denver, where it's very expensive to live. To eliminate almost $2,000 in monthly costs is a game changer. And at the same time, I increased my income by, anywhere from 30 to 50% going to different companies. So then I bought my second house hack. And just from there, I somehow got introduced to the world of multifamily just as I continued to listen to more and more Bigger Pockets podcasts and read more. And just somewhere in the back of my head, I kind of had this like 5 to 10 year vision of it'd be cool to be a full-time real estate investor, but I didn't know what that looked like. And then, somewhere along the way, Joey and I just started kind of like, brainstorming ideas and talking to each other back and forth, sharing, recommending books to each other, podcasts. And I just think through this whole process, like we all recognize there was a much deeper passion to get out of what we at the time was, less meaningful and less purposeful to something that is more meaningful and purposeful, to us personally. And just that like insatiable desire to learn more, network with people. And, those are the things you have to do when you're just starting out, finding mentors, and then just you start to hit these mini milestones that help you realize what's possible. And that's what really continued to inspire me and motivate me and give me that desire to get out of the world of pharma and into the world of real estate. And ultimately it's like, I started asking myself, what does my perfect day look like? And delivering bagels to physicians at 8 a.m. is not my perfect day. But doing this at noon on a Tuesday, going out for coffee with investors, going golfing, skiing, whatever that may be, that's a perfect day for me. And we all get to make money in the process while doing it and make even more money. So that's kind of been the overall development, of my thought process and how I've transitioned into real estate.
Yeah. Another thing that I've just sitting here thinking as you're talking, you've really acknowledged the power of strength in numbers, right? Mm-hmm. And you've been able to watch deals go down with Ironton, with Lon, who's a brilliant man, Vital, Lopez. I mean, you've soaked it in. You've got a great partner in Joey.
Yeah.
Meredith is brilliant. You've just got all those people around you, and then you just raised for a multifamily deal. So you're now allocating other people's money. Mm-hmm. And then of course now you're coming to us. Full disclosure for those watching, I'm most likely going to lend on this deal. And I like Joey and Nick, and these relationships take a while, right? I feel far more comfortable allocating my personal capital and my investors' capital to folks who I've got a long-standing relationship with, who I've watched them go through the bumps in the road. When I think of my ideal life as a lender, as a private equity guy, is doing these deals with the same people that I enjoy being around, who I know their integrity. I know I can trust them. And I know when the chips are down, they're going to not, cut and run, right? Who have the stone to stay in these, because sometimes it gets gritty, as we know. So that's what I think is when I think of my ideal day. It's, I was vetting a $40 million land deal 2 hours ago, and now we're looking at a $85,000 deal with you guys. I love it. I'm never going to stop doing these little ones. In fact, stacking these little ones disperses my risk, right?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not the guy stroking $40 million checks for those land deals. I'm making the introductions or, putting all the pieces together. But for these, it's a little more closer to the vest, I guess. So back to the deal itself. I mean, is there anything else? Tell me about the basement, right? So you're going to double the useful square footage. How many egress windows are you putting in? I mean, give me the nitty gritty of the basement rehab, because that's where all the value lies in this deal, correct?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, doubling that square footage is going to be huge. That's what gets our ARV up to the 130K. But as far as there's already windows there, but it's literally just a concrete floor and rafters on the ceiling. There's no drywall on the ceiling. There's no paint. There's no texture on the walls. And so what we plan on doing is going in and putting a ceiling in for starters, and then doing the floors, getting a good fresh coat of paint and texture, those kind of things, and actually make it a livable space for the next person that comes along to purchase this. And so Everything's going to be up to code, and we're looking forward to doubling the square footage for someone in the future.
Yeah. Are you framing out bedrooms? Are you adding the mother-in-law suite? Are you doing anything fancy? Or are you just making it a big family room? What's the deal?
Yeah, so we're early on in the process, right? So we're going to iron out some of those details with our general contractor, and she's going to talk to us kind of about what we can do with that space down there, because it is a big space. And so we're figuring that out over the next week or two, so we can pull the trigger on design and those types of things.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's talk about debt, right? Because I'm the debt guy. I'm the lender. Private debt usually starts at about 12 and 2, right? What's now, when you're doing these short bridge loans like we do, what we're always scared of is that bridge loan will, you'll get this done in 4 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then our 12% doesn't really mean squat. So we actually put a minimum on there. Have you seen when I say minimum, I'm saying we need the debt, the payment as if you had the deal for 6 months. Have you seen that with other hard money lenders? What other hard money, give me some feedback here of what you're comparing us to. ARVs, LTVs, what have you seen, and why are we talking?
Yeah, I've seen other hard money lenders right now really chasing yield with the high interest rate environment that we're in. I've seen at Ironton Capital, we work with a sponsor that doesn't do any origination points, but they lend at 14-15%, right? So, and they're a little bit more conservative. They're not as highly leveraged. And I've seen other debt funds that run at much higher leverage, but it comes down to relationships. I mean, we've talked to other hard money lenders, and at the end of the day, Chris, if I can make more money for you and we can get deals done quicker and do higher volume and continue to solidify that working relationship, it's going to get easier for all of us in the long run. And it's going to give us the greater chance of success at what we do in the long run. I'd rather come to you first off. And what you guys offer is very, very reasonable. Obviously we have some like family that'll do private money lending with no origination points, 12%. But we can't do as many deals with my parents lending us money at $50,000 on one deal, right? So we're okay with much greater volume. And if we got to pay for it, everybody wins. Everybody should win in real estate. The lender, the LP, the GP, if you start screwing people over, you're not going to get very far. So it came down to the relationships. And if we can continue to solidify this, relationship with you, Chris, and we can do much higher volume, and that's ultimately our goal, is to do much higher volume, not do the onesies and twosies here and there.
Yeah. And when you're nimble like us, right, we have a relationship when we're nimble. I mean, there's 3 of us, right? Me, Bo, and Brian. There's the lending team, right?
Yep.
It's easier for us to move it because we're a micro lending business.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, we've third party originated, big bucks, but we're a humble little private money shop. And when we have these relationships, we would far prefer working with you two and do a dozen of these a year, as opposed to making an extra point and doing deals with people we don't know, right? Like I know you guys, so that's a little advantage for being small.
Yep.
I was talking to a big shot earlier this morning, and I was singing the praises of being micro, singing the praises of being under 300 million in assets under management, right? That there is power and flexibility to being micro. Let's see, how many of these do you want to do a year?
I think our goal in 2024 is to do between 15 and 20. So that's our goal for next year. Yeah,
I love it. I'm interested. Oh, by the way, to your point, Nick, that you've got friends and family that could do it at 12 and no origination. Nobody can ever beat the rich uncle, right? The rich always wins. So, when people call me for lending advice, that's a joke and a serious thing I say every time. Like, hey, you got a rich uncle, start with him,
Yep.
and then you can get into these relationships. And I love the fact that I get to have personal relationships with my banks, and we've got some small banks that we do have. Like, I know the bow my banker uses to go bow hunting, right? I know what she gets every year. I know what her husband gets every year. If they come out to Colorado, they stay in our cabin. So I really like the personal relationships, because that's just a quality of life thing that I prefer. So 15 a year in this range, with these kind of numbers, excites me as a lender, right? Again, for those listening, we're three dudes talking. There's no advice here. There's no investing advice. We're just napkin testing a deal. Any last things we should say about this deal that I'd like to know about?
Yeah, I think that when we're looking at these deals, we always look at the potential for a BRRRR opportunity. And so the reason we're not doing those right now is, as you get private lending through you, Chris, and you try to refinance out of it, oftentimes with where the rates are at right now, there's not even, if we were to refinance at 60% loan to value, we might not even have enough equity to pay you off as the private money lender. So the BRRRR has become very difficult right now. And the other reason we wanted to think about that is, we're giving up a lot of our proceeds in the form of short-term capital gains taxes by executing on these flips. However, like we're about to finish some of these in January. We won't pay the taxes until the following October when we actually finish them. I'm also all about, and we understand the time value of money, internal rate of return, get that capital back now and reinvest it as many times as you possibly can. And even if that means paying extra taxes at the end of the year, and so we're always evaluating a BRRRR versus a flip. And right now the interest rate environment does not make sense as a BRRRR. And I'm sure that's the case in a bunch of markets. It's definitely the case here. So that's something we're always evaluating. But right now, the fix and flip, injecting the value into it in a 3 to 4 month time frame, maybe even 5 months, and then redeploying that equity once we sell it is the best strategy right now for what we're looking to do.
Yeah, you got to go volume. If this is your play here, you got to get some volume, and one a month, maybe 2 a month if you can stomach it. At least 1 a month. At least that's what's screaming to me when my napkin test analysis says you got to get some volume.
Yeah,
cool,
for sure. I like 2 a month, Chris. So we'll see how that goes.
I like 2 a month at these numbers. We like 2 a month.
Yeah. So, and to Nick's point, like our foundation, literally, that the three of us talk about at Trinity Peak Partners is relationships, and that's what we're trying to do with a lot of different people, and we just want to build a relationship with you and your team, and to see how many we can do from a volume perspective out in this area as well. So we're excited about it.
Yeah. Hey guys, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you bringing me this deal. Letting me take a chance at providing the debt, and joining me on the podcast. And I like these napkin tests, this is Nick's second, and hopefully we're still doing them in a year, and we have another 12 to 24 of these under our belts. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, Chris. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.